the true immersion is that experience. Like you need to lose yourself in that experience. And there's folks like Igloo that are doing great things with projection and actually getting that full immersion kind of experience going. And, that's where you lose yourself.
I don't want to interrupt this moment. This is great stuff, but anything you sing to that tune, I can't use on the show.
Christie powers massive interactive AV experience, leveraging AI for digital signage and the future of XR, broadcast, and AV. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 705, recorded Friday, February 21st, 2025. Lose yourself. This is AV Week, the weekly wrap-up of the biggest AV news that we have been able to find. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host, back from ISE and back from Barcelona. So this week to talk about the news we have gathered. First and foremost, my dear friend, Bren Walker from Kierkegaard. Welcome, ma'am.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from the true north.
If you're not watching the YouTube, Bren lives in Canada. And just threw a salvo over the bow there with her Canadian flag. And if you're not a sports fan or a hockey fan, just understand that the U.S. lost to the Canadians. So
that was a great game, though.
It was a great game.
Yep.
It's a 30-year streak, man. So what are you going to do?
Also with us is Joe Dunbar from Midwich, U.S. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Tim Van Wart from Rutgers University. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, Tim. How about yourself, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Mr. Van Wart has also been part of the HETMA and the virtual conference there. We'll talk about that at the end and ways that you can still kind of check that out and see it after the fact. First story actually comes to us from our website. Christie's Inspire series, DLP laser projectors, are bringing BYD's revolutionary new energy vehicle museum to life in China. This 161,000 square foot space, the first facility of its kind in China, features 26 Christie laser projectors delivering imagery across more than 300 exhibits spanning 4 floors. The projectors illuminate everything from a first floor feature wall to an expansive quote-unquote ribbon space and detailed displays with the largest visual presentation measuring 46 feet by 13 feet. Bren, we're going to start with you. I mentioned the fact that I just got back from ISE. We'll talk about that in a second. Each trade show feels like the projector market's chance to reinvigorate itself, reinvent itself, to say we are still valuable, we are still viable, we still matter. This installation is a good argument. So how are projectors in the projector market saying, we still matter, especially when it comes to the AV experience?
Well, I think that to call it like innovative or reinvention or anything like that is just such an exaggeration, right? Like it's a press release. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really read much there. There certainly wasn't any image to show anything that was spectacularly new. It's like, yes, it's, they told us what the lumens were, that they're really bright, they perform well. I could say the same thing about projectors 5 years ago, right? This projector is really bright, it performs well. I mean, that number of projectors, you'll find that number of projectors in any other museum that's doing some kind of immersive exhibition, right? Or not even immersive, which that's a whole other thing, right? Like whether or not this is truly immersive is another question. You can't really know that without experiencing it. It could just be a lot of visual imagery, but it may not actually immerse you. And when I think about things being immersive, it means that you lose sight of where you are, right? Like you enter another domain. So it's a lot of projectors. I'm sure, Christie makes great projectors. But in our world of design, it's all about what's the right application for the integration. And there are going to be cases where a projector makes sense, and there are going to be cases where LED makes sense. And we're going to make those choices based on that. I don't necessarily see projectors going away. There's still a lot of value in being able to do mapping and things like that. for at least in our world, in the live events world, projectors will still be around. Cinema's still going to rely on projectors for big houses. But there was nothing there that said innovation to me. Frankly, and maybe I'm alone in this, but more and more the things I read just feel like there wasn't a whole lot of care or attention put into writing what it is. And as we get swamped with AI-generated content, both videos and text, I think you got to say a little more than, something I could scrape from the internet, which I could do for what this thing was, which was basically a press release for a Chinese EV company.
All right, Joe, same kind of question. Is Howard Projectors kind of, saying that they are still valuable?
Yeah, I honestly, to Bren's point, I think the market really is deciding what's valuable, right? And when DV-LED really, I don't want to say when it first hit the market because things come out in pieces, but when it first was really grabbing attention and pixel pitches were getting more dense and prices were coming down, I think everybody just kind of jumped on the speculation train that when this continues, or as it continues to take off and as it becomes more affordable and as it looks better, people aren't going to be interested in these other display types, and not even just projection, but typical LCD panels and things like that. And we're seeing kind of the opposite. I feel like there's still very much a home. There's still very much several markets for projectors. The cost has come down quite a bit on direct view LED, and it's still not taking over, I don't think, the way people maybe thought or kind of predicted maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So I'll be curious to see what continues to come out of it. But at the moment, I don't think projectors need to prove anything. I don't think projecting manufacturers need to prove anything. It's still a very great product when it's used in the appropriate places. And we see that in all sorts of installations like the ones referenced, right? It was probably a better choice for the application instead of doing direct view LED everywhere. We recently worked on a project, I can't say where it was, but it was basically an old planetarium, half dome kind of shaped, right? And we needed to get visuals not only on surrounding like that entire 180 degree up, 360 degree around, but we also had to make it interact with the architecture in the place that was existing, and direct view LED couldn't do that quite as cleanly. So I think it's a lot of hype, and projectors are here to stay for quite some time. But maybe someone wants to fight me over that.
Well, and to Joe's point, if you took everything that they did and did that as LED, power consumption would be through the roof.
I can't imagine just the cost.
Well, and that is actually where I'm going next with Mr. Van Wert. Tim, several organizations, colleges among them, are really, really kind of leaning into energy efficiency. So how do you, as an organization, whether it's college or corporate, how do you kind of balance that, whether that's, laser projection and the technology that they give to sustainability goals versus, needing something that may be in the more LED, DV LED range?
Right. Well, part of it also is the upfront costs as well. Like they've both been hinting at. Projection is still the more cost efficient option. And I'm not running a projector 18 hours a day. Like this exhibition here is clearly you're going to leave your doors open for 12 hours a day. You're going to run a projection system for that much time. Yeah. Those LED walls they're just going to keep sucking you dry there on your power. So from that point, like that alone, like we look at it, yes, in that power piece as well, because we've done a great job here at Rutgers of installing solar panels. We're trying to offset our cost on the globe as best as we can. We have lots of parking lots that have solar panels now that can bring in those extra watts that we need, there's still very much a home for projection here, and like Bren was saying, the true immersion is that experience. Like you need to lose yourself in that experience, and there's folks like Igloo that are doing great things with projection and actually getting that full immersion kind of experience going, and that's where you lose yourself, and that's something that direct view LED is not going to get you at right now. Not quite yet. I think we're getting there because no one could afford the
Sphere.
The Sphere. I was thinking from Star Wars, not the Halo,
hologram, the holographics,
the holodeck.
That is Star Trek.
But the thing that they filmed The Mandalorian on,
The virtual
yeah,
setup.
the sound stages that they're using screens on.
like that's direct view LED, we don't. I don't have that here at Rutgers. Like I don't have I don't have that budget to do something like that. That's studio level type stuff. But I could throw 3 or 4 projectors in and blend the image together, and I get that sort of similar thing for a fraction of the cost.
Tim, I'm sorry, just so interesting to me that you talked about the soundstage and how they're using direct view LED has unseated other technologies and disrupted other areas that we didn't really anticipate, that were technically not even display markets prior to this, right? So that's where we're seeing more disruption. Tim, that's a great call out. The projectors still seem to be going about their business.
I will say this, we did our first XR stage for a high school last year, and it's open now. And I do think that the idea of doing virtual production in higher ed it's here. It's just the schools that can afford to do it, and the prices are going to get lower and lower. And we worked on the XR stage, very large XR stage for University of Michigan at the Center for Academic Innovation, which you should visit, Tim, sometime, to get a look and see how they're doing it. It's a multi-million-dollar project. But they put it at the center of their hybrid education and as a production facility for not only hybrid education and for remote learning, but also for local dignitaries who need to go on CNN, right? For the governor needs to appear on MSNBC or something. And so it gets used as a backdrop for that. So it's broadly a production setup that's not necessarily a higher education thing. And as these production tools get cheaper, just like we've seen in other areas of AV, once upon a time you wouldn't have a decent recording studio at a school. Now it's easy to have a decent recording studio at every school. So eventually it'll get there.
Yeah, and I think there's been a certain limit of projection that has been used in performing arts for decades now. Like if you think about it, like if you in the very core of it is light casting shadows on a scrim. It's like that's your basic projection of creating a scene where you don't have to have a full expansive set. So like this is as far as performing arts is concerned, they've been doing it for decades now. Just a very generic low level now that we're getting into these more elaborate digital set pieces, as it were.
The best immersive experience I went to within the last year had no projection. It was lighting. It was the experience was all done with lights. So, it's always about the way you apply the tool for your application, right?
So this was not on my scorecard today, but I do want to kind of go down this road for a second, and that is the XR part. Bren mentioned University of Michigan. Joe, I know that Midwich, and I know this because of my buddy Chris, you guys are going down the broadcast road as well when it comes to broadcast production and broadcast AV. We're going to NAB. I know Chris Neto is going to NAB through Midwich. So it is becoming the lines. Yes, they had blurred a long time ago in several different areas, but this is one of those that I didn't really have. I didn't see this. So why is it that broadcast is coming into what traditionally would have been an AV space where Brent is designing XR studios, AVI SPL is installing XR studios, and not just SPL, but several other integrators as well. Where are we going with this?
I actually feel like, Tim, it's so funny. It's easier. What we do is easier. It's less complex than traditional AV. I'm using a lot of air quotes here. Traditional AV versus like traditional broadcast. Just traditional broadcast is so complex, and the IP revolution has really brought broadcast kind of more into our realm a little bit, in the sense that they're starting to move signals in ways that we have moved signals, and build distribution systems more like we have built distribution systems before. So it's, you talk about your buddy Chris Netto, and I work with Chris on a pretty regular basis, and
Yep.
he's always getting us into markets that XR Studio is a great one, where it's like, maybe I thought we wouldn't have gone before. And he talks about an opportunity, and we start going through what could we do and how could we help. And it's like, wow, we can do way more here than I really thought we could, because all the technologies have really kind of converged. And I don't want to oversimplify it, because there's more to it than this, but it's kind of just like all signals routed over IP networks now, right? So we're kind of playing on the same field.
Yeah, that's the critical piece, is that broadcast now trust the signal, right?
It's a great way to say it, yeah.
Whereas before they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And there are more people now coming up in it who don't know the old signal type, and they don't know the old delivery protocol.
Yeah.
As far as the stages themselves, I mean, it's an exponential change in what you can save on set production. Radical.
This becomes content creation instead of actual physical production of pieces, right? That's a huge advantage.
That's right. And I can change over faster.
Yeah.
I can have people in different places, so I don't have to fly all my talent to one place to work together. And it's better than green screen. It's replaced green screen. So to me, it's about economies, and also the ability to create things that feel more lifelike to people in the environment in which they're watching it, right? Mm-hmm. So you're essentially, with an XR stage, you're essentially loading a game background. It's basically what it is. And so for the eyes that have grown up with games and game backgrounds, this looks more like a world that they know than that physical set does.
Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting, too, because you were talking about mode of transport, and especially in this new broadcasting world where we're seeing not so much of your network television, channel 2, 4, 6, 7, whatever it's Netflix, it's Amazon, it's, all those streaming services that we love and adore. They're carrying things like NFL, WWE. I'm name dropping all over the place here today, but but it's what's happening, and is that they trust the content stream, because even 5 years ago, like when WWE made that jump to do their own streaming services, it wasn't a great jump off, and they admit to that. We all saw it happen, but now they trust the system enough to be able to hand off to somebody else and be like, here's the content, make it happen.
Yeah, and Bryn mentioned the fact that these backgrounds are just like video games. She's not kidding. The back end is Unreal Engine for a lot of these, and Unreal Engine, if you're not familiar, is what drives Fortnite. The gentleman that started Fortnite and that entire Epic Games, he developed that system. Him and his team developed that system. And so, yeah, there's a young man who used to work for Varix as an engineer, who's now gone on to be a content creator, a film producer, that he has certifications, and he's constantly putting things up on LinkedIn of things he's creating inside Unreal Engine, and they are almost indistinguishable from somebody going out and, let's say, shooting, some cliff somewhere, or some river somewhere. So yeah, it's really, really, really great. Last story here, because I was okay with going down this road, because it's still fascinating to me. AV Buyers Club, Samsung has joined forces to bring AI to retail advertising. They are partnering with a company, I believe you pronounce it Cielo, Cielo. Their partnership combines Samsung's VXT display technology with their artificial intelligence platform. The collaboration introduces Smart Signs, a digital signage as a service solution, starting at basically $200 per display per month, which uses Cielo Vision's KYAI, also known as Know Your Audience Intelligence, to deliver targeted messaging through real-time analytics. Package includes an AI camera, a VXT Pro license, and support services with no quote-unquote upfront cost. The underlying technology employs computer vision to analyze consumer behavior pattern, dwell time, and sentiment. Really quickly, before we get too much farther into this, It feels very Big Brotherish, and I swear if anybody brings up Minority Report, my head might explode. Because every time we talk about this, somebody does. The one thing that the digital signage and the retail advertising community have done really, trying to do really great work, is saying, this isn't personal. If it's shooting me, it's a 50-year-old white guy, right? That is the type of information they are analyzing. They according to them, they are not saying, oh, it's Tim Albright who's walking past our display. It's a 50-year-old white guy. So
that's what they're saying at 9 a.m. until 11
I know.
Two parts to this, I guess, Tim, that I'll dive into. One, on the kind of privacy and security concerns that we have. This goes kind of back to everything, and it's like all this information about me is already out there, and it's attached to a random number, and it's anonymized, and to that degree. But if you put together a couple pieces of the puzzle, it's not that hard to figure out who it is. So I'm kind of over. I hate to give them anything else, but I'm kind of over that. I think for me, mostly, and I'm looking for some positives here. This feels more like, innovation disguised as, or I'm sorry, I don't want to call it a cash grab, but new product disguised as innovation. We all have hyper marketing, and hyper direct marketing is super effective. We all have our telephones, we all have our own personal devices, our televisions. That stuff is great for that because it's a very specific group of people watching that. General digital signage is usually meant to be something to convey broad information. And I think trying to target individuals with information based on maybe their facial expressions or how long they're gazing at something or something like that kind of misses the point and provides an opportunity. It is a solution. Is it a solution for a problem that exists? I feel like you'd have to ask some folks in marketing if they feel like they're missing out here. But it seems to me that it's a solution to a problem that isn't out there. But I'm curious to see how anyone else feels about that if I'm kind of out on my own here.
I agree completely. Marketing disguised as innovation. What is an AI camera? I mean,
it's a camera that has AI in it.
Yeah.
What is AI?
I got a camera right here that has AI in it. I mean, this stuff has been done before. It's not new.
Yes.
To use a camera to look at the behavior of the person in front of a display and then deliver them something different.
What do you do when there's two people?
Yeah, what do you do when there's two people? What do you do when the AI delivers back something completely wholly inappropriate?
I had not even considered that.
That's where I see the application from higher ed is a different story, because I'm not targeting like the individual student. I could be targeting I'll know that this display is in like the engineering building, and from XYZ time slots, I'm going to have 300 engineering students wander through there. Based on that, it's like, oh, someone's looking at the display. I can put in, here's a club flyer for society, for Society of Black Engineers or something like that. It's like, this is what's happening right now based on what later at night. I've got adults that are in the building, for extended learning classes and things like that. So it's, I see that as a targeted audience for a smaller bubble that maybe not necessarily, we don't need to go down the Minority Report rabbit hole. And that's as much as I'm going to mention of it, even though I had a note in for my notes to talk about it. But I think that's a different use case. And I think there is a realm of that from a higher ed, notification purposes that could be used successfully without it being too Big Brother-ish.
Is it worth $200 a month per display to you?
Oh, not at that
yet,
price point.
Not yet. So Tim, that's a great point, and I'll kind of devil's advocate myself here, and you've kind of opened my eyes up to one thing. I think if we can get to a point where the people managing the content can maybe, as you would with an AI prompt, say, here's all the content we have. This is the type of content, like type it in a box or something like that. Because right now, being able to, you can schedule content in your CMS platform based on who is there and that type of thing. You don't need a camera to do that for you.
That is the biggest Achilles heel to digital signage generically across the board. The people responsible for the actual content. And I am painting a broad brush, right? But if you talk to any integrator, consultant, designer. Where the system falls down is when somebody else, when the client, when the person, whether it's an IT director or it's an AV person, when somebody else is responsible for that content, there's a lot of times where a majority of the time, where you talk to the customer, you talk to the client a year later, 2 years later, the negatives on that system are higher because they don't know what to do.
Content is king with that. I will say where I see some value in a solution like this is being able to more quickly determine your potential return on investment with your specific pieces of marketing and content. Not even trying to hyper target somebody and direct market right to them, but understanding that as people walk by, the AI maybe isn't changing anything and isn't reacting, but it's capturing and saying, hey, we had 4 pieces of content go up while this person was standing here. These 3 did not get a very positive response, but this one did get a positive response. So there is some value there for sure. I would give them that, no question.
And you can get that with the sensor, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a camera. And once it's a camera, you know, regardless of how we feel about the disclosure of our own private information, once it's a camera, what you've captured is something that is potentially of interest to law enforcement.
And that's a whole nother wrinkle.
That's a whole nother, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And not even just law enforcement, but even like internal public safety as well.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
that's
Internal
that's
and external law
constantly something.
enforcement. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This has been fantastic. As Mitchell and I talked about earlier, this is our first show back in the studio since ISC, and it was nice to knock the rust off with you guys. So thank you so much. Brandon Walker from Kierkegaard. How do people connect with you?
You can find me, Brent, at Kierkegaard.com. Occasionally, like really occasionally on LinkedIn, look for Brenda J. Walker. That's
And
about
never
it.
on X anymore.
Oh, no. I don't have any other social media accounts at all. I know better than to give away my attention for nothing.
All right. Mr. Dunbar, how do people connect with you or Midwich US? And really quickly, Midwich US is what Starin, our friends at Starin, are now called. A number of years ago, they were purchased by Midwich, and now they're all now they're all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, it's nice to be under the same brand name and get some cohesion there. Certainly, joe.dunbar at midwich.us if I can help with anything technical related or project related. And LinkedIn is really the only social I have. Joe Dunbar, look me up. I love to connect and interact and hopefully see some people at upcoming trade shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Van Wert, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you?
You can find me. I'm the opposite. I'm all over the socials. So if you can find me anywhere, T Van Wert on the X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm on LinkedIn, tim.vanwert at rutgers.edu if you want to drop me an email or any of the such. But yeah, I'm out there. I'm also part of HETMA, the Higher Ed Technology Managers Alliance, hetma.org for more of your information there.
And how do people find your podcast?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I wasn't going to jump on there, Tim, but thank you for leaving the door open. So I am also the host of the AV Life podcast, and you can find us through higherEdAV.com, and you could find us on all the podcast service providers and the AV Life Pod on X and or Twitter. So
I'll just say HETMA rules. Anybody at higher ed listening to this who's not involved with HETMA, you are missing out.
You are indeed.
Well, thank you, Bren. We appreciate that. Thanks, Joe.
And they are certainly growing. I mentioned the ISE. You can check out our coverage, avnation.tv/ISE25. HETMA was there in force. I believe it's the first year that you guys had a booth, and it certainly will not be the last. They had a significant presence there. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere. It's not very interesting. I will complain about the Bears, Chicago Bears, for those of you outside the U.S., American football team. If you're interested in things that I write about other than AV, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. This past week, it was about losing my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. I didn't win a single match. Let's just put it that way. So,
listen, the fact that you had a first, dude, you had a first. That's an accomplishment in and of itself.
I did.
So this is how we celebrate accomplishments.
Back with the Canadian flag. All right. But yeah, don't follow me anywhere. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Go by the website if you would, please, though, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Mitchell works an awful lot, including this week where we have a brand new ed tech from the aforementioned ISE. Erin May Moran pretty much sat down in the HETMA booth and recorded all of them. So you can check that out. Like I said, you can check out our coverage at avnation.tv/ISE25. If you're watching YouTube, and you're done looking at me in my face, you can go listen to us on the podcast channels, just like Tim's show, any other podcast places you get podcasts. If you're listening to us and you want to see Bren's Canadian flag, you can check us out on YouTube. So either way, go the opposite direction. But start at the website, if you would, please, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.